I'm not coming down. I wanna go higher, higher, higher than that.
This is Write Your Own Story, 3 Keys to Rise and Thrive in Life and Business. I'm your host, Rebecca Fleetwood-Hession. Hello, we have Rachel Elsts Downey, CEO and founder of Share Your Genius, on the show today. Rachel, I ask you to come on and talk about your gifts and talents of creating really authentic content online, mostly on LinkedIn is where I see you show up, which I think people think that LinkedIn needs to be super serious businessy, and you have the ability to be a creative in a business world and bring value, relevance, and impact, what I love to call VRI. And what's interesting was when I held up the mirror and said, "Hey, you're really good at this," you went, "Oh, am I?" And so I think that's one. Go back and listen to a previous episode that we've done all about that. But do you have some practical, tactical tips for people about showing up authentically in a business setting, but being yourself, especially if you're a creative?
Yeah. And I loved that it was a mirror opportunity because I didn't realize I was doing some of the stuff that you were talking about. But then when I dug in deeper, it's actually what we help a lot of our clients do. And so I found that to be also fascinating. But I think the primary thing that people do or don't do when it comes to showing up online is that they feel like they have to be somebody different than who they are in real life. And there's a nuance there where it's like, hey, maybe you don't want to post on LinkedIn what your, I don't even know, your frat party days. Obviously, there's like a nuance there of showing up in a way that is authentic to you. But the advice that I give our clients and the advice that I carry out personally is by understanding your core values, you'll create content that aligns to your core values. And like for me, my core values are kind of really centered around 3 ideas: be humble, be brave, and be great. And that's how I anchor when I create content for myself. I anchor it based on the core values that I have. And then underneath those core values or around it, I don't know, are the roles that I play and the identity that I have. And so within that, I'm a mom, I'm a founder, I'm an employer, I'm a citizen, I'm a wife, like I'm all of these other things. And so to me, it's like, I'm going to create content from all facets of my life that serve my core values. And so the reason I bring up like the frat party days is like, you're not going to want to post something that doesn't serve that core value. So to me, like again, this isn't my story, it's just an illustrative example, but me partying at a frat doesn't align to the core value of be great. And so I'm not going to post that. I'm not going to let my client release something that doesn't align to who they want people to see them as from a core value perspective. And so those are the ways that I think about that. And then the other piece of it is if you're clear on those 2 things, the core values and sort of the roles and the identity that you have, if you're clear on those things, it's much easier to create content from an authentic place. At a minimum, to say this doesn't represent me well or this does.
Yeah.
Like at a minimum.
Easy. Yeah.
Easy. Outside of that, I would say the other way to create content is through the most natural form, which is through conversation. And so this is sort of like a trick, if you will, or a hack, which I hate, but it's a way to think about creating authentic conversation is by having a conversation with yourself or with other people. So you could grab your iPhone and you could record voice memos just on thoughts that you're having. I do this all the time.
Fair.
Go on a run, go on a walk. I'll go, oh, here's a thought I have. Sometimes it's trash and I never let it see the light of day. But sometimes I'm like, oh, there's something to that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or you have a conversation with somebody and you record it, even if it's not going on a podcast. But it's a way for you to practice the thoughts that you have. It's also a way for you to engage and explore with other people. And that exploration can be content that you use on your own digital channels like LinkedIn, et cetera. So those are sort of like the ways that I think about it. Happy to go into more examples, but is that helpful?
Yeah, it's helpful. I've had clients that are, let's say their job is systems analyst in the organization. And they're like, my job's boring. I don't think anybody's going to want to talk about that. I'm like, well, what do you care about? Well, I really care about businesses being steeped in opportunities, kind of D&I stuff. Or when I ask them a couple of questions about what they care about, to your point, values, then you see their face light up. And I'm like, you can talk about those things as it relates to business and your experience in your job as a systems analyst. It doesn't have to be about the work itself. And quite frankly, if you're not comfortable creating your own content, be mindful of sharing the content that others create that also represents your values.
and explain why you're reposting it or
Your
commenting.
view of that or
Your
the
view.
context. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's a couple of things there that I always think about too. This is marketing at a high level or brand. I don't even know the right terminology, but you always sell the brand before you ever sell a product. And so the same thing happens as a human. Like people talk about their personal brand all the time. It's not your personal brand. It's just who you are. Your personal brand is who you are. It's not about selling the brand at all. It's sharing the stories and the moments in your life that are shaping who you are. And so like for a founder, which is why I go ham on founders, it's like the company story is the founder story. And so for me, like you'll see me post things a lot about my daughter in my experiences raising children and things like that. That's because that's part of my story around my company. And so of course I'm going to talk about that because that's who I am and it's why the company exists. And so it's like to your example of like the system analyst who cares a lot about DEI, then I would be like, why? Why do you care? And like just tell the why. You don't have to like get political or anything like that, but you can literally just pocket out these little stories. And that alone is going to help you move forward and talking about the things that you care about. Because nobody, to your point, cares that you're a system analyst, right? Like that's not what we're talking about. But we do care about you as a person.
There you go. It's about you as a person. That's
Yeah.
Who are you as a person? Are you willing to show up as who you are? Because you and I both have a ick feeling when we know that people are just emulating or copying and pasting what they've seen someone else do that was successful, thinking that's going to make them successful. And it feels off if you're copying somebody else's approach or technique. I want to see you.
I want to see you. And like, I think there's a nuance there too, where we talk about the art of storytelling. And like, so you see a lot of people on LinkedIn post photos of their families or things like that. And there's sort of a tension around that in, I would say, the corporate business world, because it's like, well, that's what Facebook's for, right? That's where you're supposed to post those kinds of things. And I think that there's a nuance there that is the art of it. And so part of it is like, I would encourage people to get comfortable blurring the lines between who I am online and offline, because those lines are blurred anyway. And actually people should just stop separating them because you are who you are, no matter where you are in the meta or not. Like, come on. But the other piece of it is, I'll never post a photo of my daughter's face online anyway. Like, I just won't do it. I won't post my kids online like that. Guess what? I won't do it on LinkedIn either. You just be who you are.
Back to what do you value? Who are you?
Exactly. Be authentic in the way that you show up. That's why less posed photos get more engagement, because there's less polish behind it. And it's more about showing up who you are in the experiences that you're at and exploring that. And the other piece of it is I would encourage people is like, well, okay, I get that. I'm not a masterful storyteller yet, or I don't feel confident in that. Or I'm still figuring out my core values. I'm still figuring out what I want to talk about. I'm still figuring out sort of my content buckets of what makes sense for my core values and who I am, blah, blah, blah. So then lean into the fact that in your brain, it's an experiment and you're just trying things. And don't focus so much on, I think of it as like the creator's anxiety. And it's like you post something and then you walk away and that's all you think about. Is somebody going to care? But the truth of it is this is still the internet. And so everything you post is just getting cycled through anyway. And so remove the anxiety and give yourself the permission to go, I'm experimenting, I'm practicing. I'm going to know when I'm in my zone based on what we talked about in our last episode. I'm going to know I'm in my zone in the content creation when it just flows and I don't have to overthink it. I don't have to over edit it. And I don't have as much anxiety after I post it.
Yeah.
It's
like getting more comfortable being you and showing up as you.
100%.
And you only get more comfortable doing that by doing it.
100%.
There's no shortcut to that.
Mm-mm.
So I'm going to close with the quote that I use. My quote. I'm going to close with my own quote because I'm in the flow. I'm comfortable with doing that now, which is, you are not a machine here to produce. You are a beautiful human here to add value, relevance, and impact.
And your story does that.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I would love it if you would go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. And then you can go to RebeccaFleetwoodHessian.com and join the Badass Women's Council. And if you really want to take a deeper dive, join the movement of 1,000 thriving women. There's amazing Thrive tools there for you today. Love you, mean it.
I'm not coming down.
Hey y'all, fun fact, if you like the music for the podcast, that is actually my son, Cameron Hessian. And I would love it if you would go to Spotify and iTunes and follow him and download some of his other music. My personal favorite is TV Land.